it is Friday, and it is Bring It In time. TrueHoop's Zoom from Quarantine show. Fridays with me and Coach Thorpe. How are you, Coach?
Jarod, I need you to bring a little verb, my man. You're with me. It's a Friday. Let's go. Right? I see the document you set up. I'm excited to hear. I want to hear your video. You're calling this "Limping Towards the Finish." That is the title for today. Brilliant.
Limping to that's how it feels, right? We got like 8 games to go, and it's like, Jesus, we got to just close this regular season out so I can get a week off so we can get ready for the playoffs.
It's really true. I don't even know the schedule, Jarod. I don't know how much time is between the last regular season game and the playing game. Is it just a couple of days?
No, the last regular season game is on a Sunday, and the playoffs start on Saturday. But in between that is the play-in tournament, right? Tuesday through Thursday of that week. So listen, for all you teams that are in that play-in, I'm sorry for you, but it's going to be a rough week. And hopefully the NBA is nice to you and lets you wait until Sunday to play, but that won't be everybody. You're probably going to often a lot of teams are going to play on Saturday. So it's going to be a lot. And we're seeing a lot of injuries and guys just, you can see it when I'm on these post-game Zooms with various teams popping in and out, and you can see it in their face, coaches. I know when you coach guys and you talk to them, this time of the year, they're always like, oh God, please, can we just get to the end so I can catch a little break? But amen.
So 2 things. One, before we start, is so on that idea, it's, to me, you're right. The play-in teams should definitely not play till Sunday, not just because they just played, but just as importantly, in my opinion, the teams that they have to play, the 1 and the 2 seed, give them an extra day to scout.
For real. Yep.
Right? 3, 4, 5, 6 all know what's going on. They can do all their due diligence. And I know what those scouting reports look like. It is a tomb compared to the little pamphlet of a regular season scouting report, right? So give them some time.
Report is a piece of paper. It's 1 page. The postseason's a binder. It's like
right. So the other thing I'll say is, and this is a credit to the athletes in the NBA, one of the things that I'm so impressed with, and you're not wrong, there's a physical and mental erosion that goes on, especially when they know they're not making the playoffs. So the guys that aren't going to be in the playoffs, they know they're done and they'll have time to rest. I've never had a player, and I've been doing this now 20 years with NBA guys, that I've talked to on the day of their last game where they've been excited about it being over. That doesn't mean they weren't excited, but they were excited to play. Like Henry and I were talking about this yesterday, not this exact subject, but it's such an amazing game. People who love the basketball love to play.
They do.
And I often wonder, like you and I were just talking off air about Anthony Davis and all of his injuries all the time, and back spasms now, and he hurt his ankle also last night. Man, this guy's played so many games, and I think he still really wants to play. I mean, that's what these guys do. The ones that have to play in the playoffs, they need that week off for sure, and they'll practice some. And it's recharging you mentally as much as it is physically. Mm-hmm. But no, they're addicted to it. They really are. They got bit by the basketball bug. That's why they're pros.
Yeah, they love it. And you hear them all talk about it, right? Like these guys just love to hoop. And like when they can't hoop, it's like taking them with their life force, right? Like this is what I do. Like, and it is really awesome to see the level of dedication these guys have to the game, which of course is why they're in the NBA to begin with, right? You have to be talented, but if you're not dedicated to this, ain't gonna work out too well for you.
Let's see your video. I haven't seen it yet.
Let's start with the video this week.
The Phoenix Suns are in the midst of a franchise revival. They have the best record in the league and are second in adjusted net rating. Vegas set their preseason win total at 38.5 games, and their odds to win the conference at plus 2,000. Their stellar play this season have improved those odds to about plus 800.
Do the Suns have a shot at winning the Western Conference?
All the smart money and analysis still favors the Lakers, Clippers, and Jazz. But that assumes health, which in this topsy-turvy season is anything but a certainty. The Suns fit the profile of a team poised to make a deep playoff run. A top 5 defense, which travels in the postseason. 2 elite shot creators and makers in the point guard and Devin Booker. Shooting on the wings, and a rim-running young defensive big man.
So why aren't we in on the Suns?
They're new, and we haven't seen them on the big stage. Outside of CP3 and Jay Crowder, this roster has 0 playoff experience. This happens with Vegas every year. The Lions punish teams we have not seen succeed in the playoffs before.
This is a form of cognitive bias. Because we've never seen it, we don't think it's possible. We just can't picture it. It's only when they beat the Lakers or the Clippers, then we'll believe.
At plus 800, with the questionable health of the other contenders and a profile that suggests success, taking at worst maybe the 5th best team in the league at these odds is an easy bet to make.
Yeah, so this week I took a gambling angle to it, right? Plus 800 at the time. They're down to plus 600 now. It's great odds, right? 8-1. And in the sense that we don't know, we talked about the Lakers and all their health issues. Who the hell knows what's going to happen? So if you're just trying to be like, I got a couple bucks, let me throw it out on a team at plus 800, why wouldn't you on the Phoenix Suns? And for all the reasons I said, they play defense. They've got 2 shot makers and creators. They got shooting and defense on the wings and a young big man. Am I saying they're guaranteed to win the West? No, but they got a shot.
How are the odds of? So are they the lowest odds of the top 4 seeds in each conference?
Yeah.
So that's a smart play. They can absolutely win the whole thing. I have no doubt. I don't know that I'd pick them. I don't have to pick anyone now.
Right.
I could, but I want to see who's healthy in 2 weeks.
Right. We don't know who's healthy, right? So it's like, why not toss a couple of dollars on them? And I think that, what I like about Phoenix too, especially with the seeding works out, they may not have to worry about playing the LA teams to the conference finals, right? Which that's a huge advantage, right? Because if they somehow get into the 1 and they play Portland in round 1, okay, they'll probably beat Portland. Then let's say, next round Nuggets, okay, give them a shot to beat the Nuggets too. You may not see the next team till another team like that, to the conference finals. So I think it really is all going to depend on who's healthy, what happens these last 8 games, and we'll get to this later, but this is, what I'm sure Adam Silver and the play-in czar had hoped for when they put this all together.
Yeah, I think you're going to talk about it later. It's working good. I like the play-in. We'll hear your comments when we start playing Jazz.
Yes, sir. So let us start playing Jazz. You kick it off.
Yeah, so I don't know a lot about college sports. I talked about this, and I know a good amount. And I don't really know each state's rules regarding paying these athletes as it relates to endorsements. But I saw this yesterday, Yahoo. The governor, Brian Kemp, has signed a bill into law allowing college athletes in the state to make endorsement money starting July 1. And here's the kicker. The new law allows schools to take up to 75% of an athlete's endorsement income and redistribute it to other athletes. Okay. I don't think the law puts it that way. That's the summation of it. And I don't know how accurate it is. I don't know how lawful it is. I've seen Tennessee do something similar. I don't think Florida's done that yet. I don't know how any of these schools in the South who want to use their predominantly Black athletes in their sport to take whatever money they make and redistribute to the mostly white tennis players and swimmers or whatever. I don't know how they're ever going to recruit athletes anymore. Like, I'm just telling you, there's going to be a huge, huge story coming where the people like LeBron, the leaders like LeBron James, and there's many others, and they don't all be involved in sports. Cornell West or whoever are going to say to all these high school, monster phenom talents, go to places that will let you keep most of your money and not share it. Listen, if they wanted to do it this way as it relates to our regular wealth income, our taxes, well, then we'd say they're being consistent. But that's exactly the opposite of what really goes on, right? So it's barbaric to me that this came out this way. And I don't know how they think they're going to keep their players.
Well, the NCAA, right, and because that's the body behind Kemp making this rule, right? Like their emirate and their lobbyists are talking to him about, signing this bill into law. This is what happens in the NCAA without pay, right? It already happens. When they sign contracts with ESPN or whomever, right? Football and basketball, the predominantly Black revenue-generating sports, bring in all that money. Yep. They don't keep it for themselves. It gets doled out to crew, fencing, tennis, swimming, right? Predominantly white sports. So they're just trying to uphold what they've been doing the whole time. Yep. All right. You want to make money? No problem. But we're going to take about 75% of that. And why?
But you're taking it out of their pockets now.
Now we're going into your pockets and taking
it. It's the individual player. And I'm open to hearing arguments. I'm open to hearing, because I'm not an expert at this. I have a son that plays college basketball. I don't know how much he'll play next year. He's going to be a true redshirt freshman now. He's a handsome kid. If he has some kind of modeling deal They think they can get something, and he's got to give. He's in Florida, so he doesn't worry about it now. He's got to give up 75%. Like, that's kind of fucked up. Where is that made up? Why is that the number? So I'm interested. Right now, I'm just saying I'm interested, but I would tell you, SEC fans who are used to your teams dominating in football, just wait, because places like Tennessee and Georgia, you might see an exodus if this happens in those states only.
Well, what I'm hoping is that we see a true dismantling and a breakup of the NCAA system, right? I mean, we're already starting to see it happen in basketball with obviously the G League and all players having options to go overseas in Europe, the new professional collegiate league, which just signed their TV deal. Like, it's already starting to happen at the basketball level. Football is harder because of the sheer amount of athletes you need to play the game, right? And college already has that built-in infrastructure set up to kind of just plug and play. So that's going to be a little harder. But basketball, I think we're going to see some changes there for sure.
Yeah, it's like I said, I don't know how they're going to work it out. I'm open to hearing different ideas and interpretations, and we'll see what's even legal. And the last thing I'll say is there are some amazing college programs in all sports. My son's involved in one of them. I would not want to change a thing in how they're developing him as a young man. He was home for a week, and he's a different kid. And I could not be prouder of him and happier for his place in the world, thanks in large part, I think, to his coaches. I don't want them to change a thing there, but they're the exception, I would argue. I don't think there's a bunch of those. No. And I know from experience on this, there's a lot of just regular old programs. And so, yeah, there's going to be a storm coming. It's going to be a storm coming.
For sure. All right. Politics is local. That's something that, I've said really from the beginning of this. And, we always talk about presidential and gubernatorial and even mayoral races, right? But you generally see stuff starting to filter down. An important race coming up here in New York City is the Manhattan District Attorney race. And the Manhattan District Attorney's office is the second largest district attorney's office in the country. And a lot of the decisions that happen here in New York City reverberate throughout the rest of the country. And we have a lot of candidates who are interesting, and they're all on the left. And we have a primary coming up in June that I'm active in. And, I've got a candidate who I like. But there's some challenges there on the left right now because there's 3 or 4 of them, and they kind of had similar ideas, and the way that they're fundraising and doing their work, it's sort of taking away from the other, right? You think of it, make a basketball analogy. It's like when you have a super team, right? The odds of one of those guys winning an MVP, not likely, right? Because they take votes from each other, and we can't decide who's better than the other person. But meanwhile, what's happening is while the left is trying to figure out who we like as our candidate, a Wall Street funded DA, right, is fundraising, making all her money from Goldman Sachs, all these various huge entities, which suggests nothing will change. And the district attorney race, why it's so important and why it matters. And Judy knows this as a lawyer. All of the rules and regulations and the ways in which they choose the crimes they choose to prosecute are all decided, right, by the district attorney. Well, if I'm a Wall Street funded DA, who do you think I'm not going to be persecuting and going after, right? It doesn't take a rocket science to figure that one out. And if I've got interest of people who have investments in private prisons and the carceral system, well, what do you think I'm going to do? Continue to prosecute low-level offenders to keep inmates and the number of inmates in prisons high, right? So I can keep my profits up. Versus the other guys who are like, no, we're looking at a complete decarceral state, which is the opposite of what these guys want. So what I'm hoping is that Eliza Orlins is the candidate I like, and honestly, but if she doesn't win, if any other women are on the left win, I'd be 100% happy with that. Is that they figure out, okay, let's get ourselves on a unified platform here, and we need to figure out how we're going to beat and fundraise and get the community grassroots effort out to stop that behemoth and machine that is Wall Street.
Well, they need to call Stacey Abrams.
She would know.
She's a genius and stuff like that. Her and Barack Obama's team is pretty good too. All right, so I guess there was a big fight in a Kings Indiana game between Indiana player and coach, and there was a player got yelled at basically for not protecting the rim. And then he comes down the court and makes a 3, and he says to his coach, sit the F down. And then they kind of confronted each other afterwards. And apparently they feel bad about it, and they think that they've kind of, you can see he definitely says sit the F down. Although he doesn't say F, he says the word. Players can get emotional, but you just don't do that to an assistant coach. But the article really goes into a meltdown in Indiana between lack of accountability between from where the coach's standpoint to the players. We haven't talked about Indiana all season. Now they've had some injuries for sure. You can see the coach getting really mad at the player for saying that. I would get mad too if someone said it to me. I've never quite had a disrespect like that, but and I think the player felt bad. I really do. But that's one thing that management and especially coaches are in charge of is accountability. It is one of the things that I most commonly hear from players, Jarod, when they complain. They don't typically complain X's and O's. Not to say they don't, but it's not common. Their biggest complaint is they'll use the term unfair, but a lack of accountability with certain guys. And there's no cohesiveness. You don't have to treat everyone the same, but you got to kind of follow the same rules more or less. And when you don't have that, unless it's a LeBron James type, and I don't think LeBron messes up these kind of things anyway, you're going to have this kind of stuff. And so this coach is in jeopardy. I don't know if he's any good or not. Like I said, they've just not been a factor all year because they started the year hurt and all of that, and nothing's really changed. We look at guys like Pop, look at guys like Doc Rivers. I mean, these guys have been around. The politics of coaching is real, and it's always been that way. In high school, you've got the wealthy kids, whether they're good players or not, to deal with, right? That's in college, you've got boosters and donors and all that kind of stuff. You've always got to manage up in a sense. The NBA is a little bit different. You kind of got to manage down, but you do have to manage. And when you don't, things like this happen. And it's a sign that there's something really unhealthy going on behind the scenes. When you don't hear this at all, like Rick Carlisle, you never see him with stuff like this. That guy's got his stuff together, right? Dwayne Casey has his stuff together.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned Indiana. We didn't hear any of this stuff when Nick McMillan was head coach, right? And Nick McMillan, by the way, who took that team to the playoffs about every year he was coaching there. Yes, they do have some injuries and some things to deal with, but The Athletic got into a little bit in-depth piece about what's going on with head coach Nate Bjorkgren and that staff. And clearly there is not only a lack of accountability, but a lack of cohesion and connectivity between Bjorkgren and the players. TJ Warren, who's been out all season, according to that article in the Athletic, basically said and opted for elective surgery so he wouldn't have to play under Bjorkgren.
Wow.
That to me, that is a huge indictment. Like, wait a minute, you chose just so you don't have to deal with this guy, because Warren had played under him as an assistant in Phoenix. And so apparently the ownership and the GM did not talk to the players about this whole process. They just went straight for Bjorkgren because that's the guy they wanted. And look, you're having a disaster. Meanwhile, look at what Nick McMillan is doing in Atlanta right now with the Hawks. Yeah. Right? So you can say what you want about Nate, like, is he the right guy to take you to the promised land or whatever? But one thing I do know about Nick McMillan is players like playing for him, holds guys accountable, and he wins more than he loses.
And his team's guard.
Right.
His teams, I've written this before. Nate McMillan, I think Lloyd Pierce could have been just fine, although he apparently didn't get on great with Trey or whatever. Maybe he was too tough on him. They also got all their guys back. So Nate's been lucky. But Nate's earned his luck, because the one thing his teams always do is they defend the guy they're guarding as if they get beat, they're going to be grounded for a week. Like, they bring war to the ball. I've always said that and always written that. His teams will always lead the league in point of attack steals. Like, you are not scoring on me, sucker. And if you do, you're going to have to work your ass off to do it. There's a mentality to that. And when you don't have that kind of persona, you can see it to the teams. They just aren't guarding the same, and they have these kind of meltdowns. Players need structure at all levels. They need structure. When they don't get that structure, they tend to color way outside the lines. And on a team, that could be a problem. Individually, great. On a team, it struggles. And I think Goga's a bad person, but he lost it. This guy's not going to be around much longer, I don't think.
Yep, for sure.
As a coach.
Next thing I want to talk about is the IOC being on the wrong side of history. Judy, if you want to pull up that second link there, they just recently said that any Olympian that has anything that says Black Lives Matter apparel are going to be punished for their social protests. And you think about, first of all, what the Olympics are and what they're supposed to represent as an event and what they are, right? These athletes work their tails off. You earn a medal, you get on that podium stand. It's about representing so many different things. And you have to ask yourself, why does the phrase Black Lives Matter conjure up so much resistance and fear? And all of a sudden we're going to be punished for protesting, protesting what? Human rights, right? I mean, which is something that is one of, if you read the IOC sort of like credo and whatever they profess to espouse through sport, right, is something like akin to human rights. But clearly that's not what they actually believe, right? If this is the position that they're taking. And I just think at an event like the Olympics, for the IOC to come out and make this kind of statement, horrendous, poor side of basketball. And, you know, as Greg said in the chat, USA women's basketball is going to get somebody fired over this. Probably because the women, when they win the gold medal, will no doubt do whatever it is they're going to do. And, you know, we'll be here supporting them. But it's really not shocking, but it's sort of like, wow, you guys cannot see the forest through the trees here.
Well, it's like I talked about this with you last week on the show. At TrueHoop, we are on the cutting edge of politics meeting sports, because it's happening in the real world, and the media in generally hasn't made it a day-to-day activity to follow. We do. And as our athletes are gaining more power than ever before, not to say that, come on, Bill Russell, Jim Brown, Muhammad Ali, these are the people that start, Arthur Ashe, like it is 60 years in the making, right? Where athletes are doing this. We're getting more light shown on them because of social media, where they don't need us. They can do their thing on their own, and people like us comment on it. But it's not going away. Like, we're going to hold people accountable like never before. Certain media entities will, and I don't understand the logic behind it.
Has always been lockstep with sports. This isn't something new that just happened yesterday. Right? Like, sport is a microcosm of the larger society in which it inhabits. Well, I mean, if the things go on out there, of course they happen within sport. Like, why would that be any different? Everyone knows about John Carlos and Tommy Smith. Everybody knows about Jesse Owens, right? Like, running in the face of Hitler. All these different things. Like, I mean, this has been happening since the dawn of time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. All right. So for my article this week, we did another contender series, and Henry had told me, I think it's time you focus on the Sixers. And I thought, I was thinking about Denver or Philly, because Denver, just lost Murray, and I think I'm ready to write about him. But I started looking at Philly, and I really didn't know, Jarod. I mean, I'm not as smart as Henry. I don't write as well. I know the game better than him, obviously. It's what I do. And so I just kind of dive in. I don't really know where I'm going. When I first start, I mean, sometimes I know what I want to write, and then I write about it. But when I'm told write about the Sixers, well, I don't know what I'm going to write about the Sixers. So I'm just watching tape and I'm studying the metrics and everything. And I watched Ben Simmons score 40-something points against the Jazz a couple months ago. They lost, but he was incredible. That dude hasn't broke 28 all year, except for that game. He hasn't broken 18 in the last month and a half or whatever. And that's when I started realizing I was at a game in the 2006 NBA Finals where Dwayne Wade had 43. He was unstoppable, relentlessly unstoppable. The Mavericks did everything they could. It didn't matter. Now, I watched the whole game the other night again. There were some bad calls. I don't want Mark Cuban's upset. There were some touch fouls for sure. It took 25. He took 23 free throws. I think he made 21. Maybe he took 25 and made 21. It's a lot of free throws. But Ben Simmons needs to do that. He needs to be that guy that played and scored 40 plus against the best defense, top 2 defense in the league, whatever, with the Jazz. And then you saw Joel Embiid and the fact that they play great defense. And I talk about their combined length is almost 35 feet wingspan in some of their lineups. Pretty amazing. They're the longest team, I think, in the league. And they play great D. And Joel's incredible, but I think Simmons is the guy we need to focus on. If he can bring it every game like Wade did, then their chance of winning the East goes way up. I wouldn't bet that he would. I don't trust that he will. He's been the same player more or less his whole career. But I'm hoping Doc can find a way to wind him up a little bit and say, go do your thing, big man, because if he does, they already have like the second best transition team in the league. That's all Ben. It's just flying.
When they employ the lineup of Simmons, Tybal, Embiid, Danny Green, and I want to say Tobias Harris. Defensively, man, woo boy. I mean, you can't get a pass off by these guys.
And Dwight has a 7'5" wingspan too. Dwight has been terrific again. Like, watch highlights of Sixers games. There's a lot of Dwight Howard dunks. It's not all Joel Embiid. Yeah, the Lakers could use some Dwight Howard right now. Now, another defense is fine. Obviously, it's very good. But, that's who I'm watching. I want to see Ben Simmons take the next step and just dominate a series. One series. Like John Wall, the first time John Wall did it, I think they were playing the Raptors many years ago. And I thought, all right, he was the first pick of the draft, and now he looks like one. Ben's never done that. He's been very good. But he just leaves us wanting more, which I think I wrote that too. We want a little more from you, Ben. If you do that, and Joel and all those defenders, they could win the East.
Because he brings it defensively, but it's like you're saying, you get the ball, man, go downhill and attack, right? Force the other team to change whatever their defensive strategy is, right? Now they do the whole like, all right, just like, turn, don't guard them, whatever, but like do different things to force the defense on the other side to change, right? And then that'll open so much. I mean, I think because he can get to the rim on anybody, right?
He only averages, I wrote this, he only averages 10 drives a game. He only averages 5 points off drives a game. That's the same as TJ McConnell.
Wow.
6'1" little dude.
Right. You're 6'10".
And also the same as Justice Winslow, who probably isn't in the NBA next year.
Right.
Injury ravaged Justice Winslow scores as many points on drives as Ben Simmons.
Yeah.
That's gotta change.
Yeah, no, that for sure has to change. All right, play-in tournament, Coach. There's been a lot of scuttlebutt about it. Judy, if you want to bring up the standings on the ESPN page right now. Look, we talked about this. The players are like, man, we want this season to end, regular season to end, so we can get ready for the playoffs, what have you. But, Coach, nobody in either conference has their spot locked in yet. It's going to come down to that last game of the season, which is exactly what Adam and the play-ins are wanted. So it's creating what we want. You and I talked about it off air. If you can scroll down to the Western Conference, Judy, listen, the Lakers, man, they got an important game tonight against Portland. They lose that one, and as Coach and I think, Lakers might be in the play-in tournament. And if they're in the play-in tournament, yikes. That's a big hill to climb, right? Because now you got to maybe bring LeBron back sooner than you wanted to, or what have you. And it's problematic for them. And look, in a one game, because if they're in the 7th seed, they've all they do is win once. But if they lose that first game, let's say to the Warriors, because Steph goes nuclear, well, now it's literally single elimination for you, win or go home. Way earlier than you even wanted that to happen. And it's like that in the Eastern Conference too. You've got the teams that are clearly going to be in the top 6, but even they're still figuring out seeding. The only team I think right now that has like sort of a clear eye on where they are is Philly. Philly's pretty much in the driver's seat to have that 1 seed. Everybody else though, who knows?
Yeah, the Jazz have a 1-game lead on Phoenix. They do play Denver tonight. They could either lose that game. Donovan Mitchell's not playing. I don't know if Conley's playing. I don't think he will play. I think he's questionable. And so Phoenix could tie them again, and they have the tiebreaker. But then the schedule gets easier for Utah than it does for Phoenix. So, but you're right. And Denver's I think Denver's locked into a top 4 seed. And I don't think they can get to maybe they can get to 1. Probably won't.
2, 3. Yeah.
It's exciting that we don't know what's going to happen. It makes these games interesting, which is the whole point.
Yes.
Right. I would like, I maybe have said this before, the one change I would like to see is I think that there shouldn't be a 7-8 play-in unless there's just 1 or 2 games apart. But we could, in theory, we could have a 7 seed that's won 52 games and an 8 seed that's won 44. I do not think it's fair to let them play it off for that 1 seed. I think there should be a trigger. If you're within 1 game, we're going to have you, or 2, whatever, but I would make it 1. We're going to do a playing game for fun. But hey, if you don't want to be in a playing game for that 7-8, well then outwin the 8th seed by an extra game. That's not the rules this year, and so I think the ratings are going to be good.
Yeah,
I think people are going to be watching these games
for sure.
They're going to matter. And the 9-10-2. I watched the Wizards last night.
Mm-hmm.
You said this last week. I mean, Russell is an enigma, but the Cat's capable of doing a 30, 20, and 12, 15, whatever game, and they have Bradley Beal. You know,
Bradley, if you play them in the first round, can win games by themselves and make it harder on you than you want it to be to start your playoffs.
Sure. Yeah, they could get into the playoffs as a 10 seed. They could get to the first round. It'll be interesting on both sides. I don't love the Spurs elasticity. With Derek White, I would, but he's out. I like the Warriors elasticity just fine. Yeah, that's the one team I think people like. The Jazz may be rewarded with a 1 seed against Steph.
Right.
Or LeBron.
Right. Which is congratulations on playing so well.
Right. Great for ratings. Bad for the Jazz.
Yeah.
But whatever, you can't control that kind of stuff. Your job's to win games, right?
Honestly, if the Jazz ended up playing the Warriors, I would still pick the Jazz to win the series. It's just that, again, you're making it harder than it needs to be. You're
not going to sweep them.
Right?
You're not going to sweep you're not going to beat Steph 4 straight times, I don't think. I agree with you. If they're healthy, Wiggins is actually playing well. He's not an all-star. He's playing well. He's a good player. Mm-hmm. But Steph is the one guy that, like you said, no nuclear. I would favor Utah or Phoenix against Golden State. They're just going to overwhelm them overall, but it won't be a 4. When I've been picking playoff games for years, I don't typically pick any team in the 1-8 seed, 1-8 game to have it go 6 games. It's always 4 or 5.
Right.
I'm not sure what I would do if it's one versus Steph.
Oh yeah,
I might have to go 6.
By picking 6, which again, and you know this, Coach. Energy is not infinite; it's finite.
Right.
So now having to go 6 games and chase Curry around for 6 games, that's going to have a cumulative effect on me at some point. Right. Now it's going to catch me in the conference finals, and it's like, oh man, I'm out of gas. When I really need to be having, because I got to go 7 games against whomever, the Clippers. Well, now you don't have the extra energy. And
that's what I want to see, how fast these games come. I don't know the schedule yet for the first round. In previous years, that was the one round where you actually did get your recovery time.
Yeah.
So when the Spurs beat Dallas in 7 games, in LeBron's last year in Miami was at 2013, San Antonio was fine because it took like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
To play that series. Now it's going to be like 9 days or whatever it is. But we'll see. I don't know yet.
I hope we get a couple. They need a couple 2-day. You can eliminate the 3-day breaks in between. That's fine. But get a couple 2-day breaks in there, because that's just going to, again, this is going to be so much about which team manages. And right now, the healthiest teams, Coach, looking like it coming into the postseason right now, Philly, Milwaukee, Clippers right now, right? Those are the 3 healthiest teams right now. And Phoenix heading into the postseason. Everybody else is kind of like, all right, we're still waiting on guys. And when
is Ibaka back?
And Ibaka for the Clippers that's the next one. I think
that's the only one. He's the only guy. Beverly's back now. He's coming off the bench.
I think they said he'll be back for the last few games of the regular season, if I'm not mistaken. So
they're doing well without him.
Yeah,
and Reggie Jackson's playing well. Beverly's back. Not starting now, but he's back. So all right. So this is not we're not going to play it, but I put it in the document. I want everyone listening, or if you're watching it now on the live or on YouTube later, if there's a way to see the chat and see the link to Joy Reid talking about Tucker Carlson, it's the best 4 minutes and 25 seconds I've had in 2021 watching videos. Better than any NBA highlight reel I've ever seen. It is a brilliant, brilliant woman who has clearly took the time to best express her views when basically Tucker is showing what a racist fuck he is against her. She's got a very clever, sober response to it. I've listened to it 3 straight days. I don't know when I'm going to stop, but it puts a smile on my face every damn time. There's new layers of genius in what she says every time I've watched it. So I recommend you watch it. All right, but I'm going to start with a question for Jarod.
Cool.
So think about all the things Henry's been writing, okay? Where he's basically learned that people like Jeff Epstein and Khashoggi, they built their fortunes basically leveraging information they have on people for money. I don't know how, and that's the easiest way I would put it is, I know you've been with young girls or whatever, fill in the blank of the terrible things these people did. Therefore, you must invest in my companies and whatever. And okay, so given that we know these things have happened now, and Henry's written so beautifully and brilliantly on it, when you hear about politicians right now who were so anti-Trump over the course of a period of time when he was president, who are now double downing on his side, including the woman who from West Virginia, I think, who's about to take over the Congress. She's going to be the new face of the Republican side of Congress, who trashed Trump many times over the course of his presidency, fought him a lot. And all of a sudden now she's walking in his path. My question to you, Jarod, is, do you think that Team Trump and those highest level politicians on that side have kind of used the Jeffrey Epstein playbook and said, if you don't join with us, we're going public of what we know about you?
I think that's definitely part of it for sure. I mean, no matter what side, Democrat or Republican, the things that go on amongst the power brokers and the people that sit at the levers of power in this country, that's how you leverage. It's dirt. What do I have on so-and-so to get what I need? So that for sure is happening. I think the second part of it is the Republican Party is sort of going through a transformation, right? I mean, it has, but it's like, what is our new ideology going forward? Because if you really look at it, the corporate side of the Democratic Party, right, the established Dems, that's essentially the old Republican Party. They're all conservative,
right,
middle-of-the-road people, right? The AOC, those are left, and these Biden and everybody else, these are middle-of-the-road people. They are what the old Republican Party was. So now these new people are like, well, the Trump thing was so popular, even though he's a moron and all these other things, that worked, right? More people voted for him in the second go round. All right. Well, if that seems to work, let's just follow the playbook. I'm going to do that, but maybe I'll dress it up and not be as misogynistic and not as racist and not as whatever, but I'm going to hit the same tempos and points because that's who the people who vote for us want to hear. So I'm just going to keep ringing the bell and doing that. That's the direction of this party now. It's this cartoonish, ridiculous mob of people who, are xenophobic and nationalistic and, only want like a pure white America. And okay, if that's what our people want, and let's do it. Whatever votes is going to help me win, because at the end of the day, that's all these politicians care about, is keeping and consolidating their power and winning. That's it. Period. Not helping people. I mean, who cares about that?
You're not wrong about almost everything you just said right there in terms of their motivations. It's the rare congressperson or the rare senator that actually seems moved to help others, for sure. And on that subject, and then we'll get to basketball, I was offered an opportunity to speak to a group of teenagers and college students in Memphis via a Pepsi program. And I spoke at Booker T. Washington, which is in what's called a food desert, which I'd never heard of before. And Judy just posted a link I put in there from my city, St. Petersburg, where I coached for many years. And my kids lived in a food desert, and it never dawned on me. I know, I drove them home all the time. We practiced down there. Where I live, I could walk to 3 different Publixes, the best grocery store out there, at least it used to be. There's food everywhere. There's also 3 different like organic food places. There's a Whole Foods, there's a Fresh Market, and there's another place called Sprouts where I can eat healthy if I want. Food deserts don't have any food really to get, and if it's fast food, we know how bad fast food is. It is remarkable to me that within walking distance from the FedEx Forum, right, sponsored by FedEx, monster company, right? I think they just made a big announcement about, I think they're going to be a big sponsor for maybe Champions League soccer. And the Memphis Grizzlies, which is a $1 billion organization now, and they do a ton. In fact, I think Memphis, I was told this weekend, when the NBA first decided to get their teams involved in community work, Memphis jumped in more than anyone, and it's never changed. So I give great credit to everyone involved in that association. it is a big deal in Memphis for the Grizzlies to help their community. The community needs help. And so this school right by the arena is a food desert. And I was able to talk to young people, and I'm embarrassed that I didn't really know much about it. I just don't think enough about it. And that's changed. And I'm going to do some things now that I had never done before. But just hearing you talk and thinking about politicians helping, I'm going to do my part to try to make people aware of that aspect of our supposedly rich country. When you've got people who cannot eat healthy because there's no food around and there's also no transportation. You can't even get a bus in some of those areas. And so what are they supposed to do? They don't have cars in some cases. They can't walk to any place that has healthy food. They can't even make a good choice. And when you think about how COVID has hit our Black and brown communities, you have to factor that in, because eating unhealthy all the time, it seems the data is showing now, we'll know more in the next 10 years, that COVID is hurting those bodies more than almost anyone else.
For sure.
Because they're not healthy to begin with.
No doubt. And food deserts is something, of course, I've known about for quite some time. There are food deserts here in New York City, right? In areas of the Bronx and Harlem and several parts of Brooklyn. I mean, again, and I've talked about this before, the American Rescue Plan that Biden signed into act, and different things that extended school lunches and the various programs and internet at libraries, what have you, most people don't think about those things on a daily basis, because I can just go to my refrigerator and there's food in there. There's a grocery store downstairs in my building. There is a Whole Foods 5 blocks away, right? So I don't have to think about those things.
Yeah, right.
That's me. There are millions of people in this, like, who live right here in this city near where I live, who that's not the case, right? Because they're in a food desert or whatever other parts of the country that don't have that. And so, you know, it's really incumbent on us when we elect these politicians and they look at what actually matters. Do you care about the people? And are you trying to help people, right? I mean, the saying goes, you can tell a lot about a country and how it treats its poor and disenfranchised and elderly, right? Well, if that is the case, you know what that says about this United States of America. I'll leave it there.
I'll just say this. I've been lucky enough to speak to rooms of, I once spoke to 250 CEOs at St. Regis in Atlanta. The reviews were very good, but when it's question answer time, they had less questions for me than these young people did. We had to stop the whole thing because they kept having one more question. And the only basketball question was, I had mentioned at some point LeBron being a top 2 player. Well, who do you think they thought should be in there? Right, Kobe, of course, right? And it was a great debate. Oh, the other debate was being in Memphis is who's better, Ja Morant or pick your guy, right? And actually, a lot of them weren't picking Ja, which kind of surprised me. But that was it. They had amazing questions. But really, these are young people. It was juniors in high school and above, and then college students at University of Memphis and some HBCUs in the area. And we have a lot of brilliant minds who are hungry. And one of the things Pepsi is doing and the Grizzlies are doing is they built a special room in the school where there's food and water and there's computers. You know, they're basically saying, if you take some steps towards us, we're gonna do our best to give you more. Now we've got to reach the other people. We talked about this in the meeting, who aren't motivated. Like, to me, it's low-hanging fruit to grab the kids who are not just bright but also ambitious. But we've got to find ways to get. This is why they brought me in. How do you find the young people who may be bright or not, but definitely aren't ambitious? That's a bigger challenge. How do we get them on board with there's a better life for you and give them a plan for it? So, but yeah, you can't hard to do anything when you're hungry.
Yeah. Pretty much impossible. Pretty much impossible.
Right. All right. So I have a question. We talked about this, and then we got a few other things to get into. Oklahoma City, I watched last night. As horrible a team to watch as I could ever imagine in the NBA, by design. Okay. All these picks coming. But in my research on Ben Simmons, I learned that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander leads the league in drives per game, and he's 22 years old. If you look at the list, by the way, here's a future article I think I'm writing. The top drivers in the league, all lottery picks, more or less. Ben leads in the top 25. He wasn't. Malcolm Brogdon is just below him, second round pick. mostly lottery picks. It's hard. Shai Gilgeous is amazing. He's 22. He's too old. By the time OKC is going to be any good, as currently constructed with these draft picks, he's going to be 28 years old. So we debated this. We didn't argue. Do they trade him? Get even more picks because they'll get some ones, sure. or do they immediately, like starting next year, start plucking just one star? You and I talked about Karl-Anthony Towns. Minnesota says we're going to go real young. We got Anthony Edwards, who's really coming. We'll get to him later. And you can have Towns. We're going to take 2 number ones from the 84 number ones that Oklahoma City has, and just Towns and SGA. With just some average players, which they don't have any of those either. They got to go get those too. But you can sign those guys. They're a playoff team,
no doubt,
and they're young.
Yeah.
So what do you think? What do you do if you're Oklahoma City?
I think if you're Oklahoma City, you definitely get SG. You sign him to an extension because his rookie extension his rookie deal is gonna be up soon. So get that extension there, and then I think you're right. Look, there with all the picks they have coming, I think what you could do is, you have to look at the market. Who are the other young, talented guys around his age that are poised for a breakout? You mentioned Cat. Is John Collins part of that? Is he someone who is young and like, ooh, he needs the right environment? We get him here, we're good.
It's a great one. Great idea.
Right? I love John Collins. And maybe the whole thing in Atlanta doesn't work. I'm scanning other rosters in my head off the top of what I think is good. He's a big man, and this looks like they're going to build on him. But Jarrett Allen in Cleveland, right? Like,
Duncan Robinson, who's a free agent now, and they may want to upgrade talent-wise,
right? Because you're at this weird nexus point, right? Phoenix probably isn't going to move Devin Booker, so you can't get someone like Booker, right? So that's especially with what they're doing now with Chris. Can you do something reclamation-wise with Marvin Bagley? Is that worth it? Do you think, hey, this guy can be good? He's just in a bad situation in Sacramento.
I think he's really talented.
And these are the questions you got to ask yourself. Houston already did that in a way, right? With Christian Wood. They're like, no, we think this guy's good. We like him. We're going to play this guy. So you really have to be doing your homework and figure out who are these, not because you're not the superstar guys are where they are, right? That class is already in their 30s and aging up and out. So it's not those guys. It's that mid-20s range. Who are the mid-20s guys? We don't think it's Andrew Wiggins, right, anymore. We think he is who he is, right? We think that's what we've seen is kind of what we get. So that's not a move you make. But yeah, guys like Cat and John Collins and Jarrett Allen and Duncan Robinson, people in that age range, those are the ones you're targeting.
If the Bulls hadn't traded for Vooch, you would try to get Zach Collins.
Yes.
Yeah, you're looking for teams that have a star and don't have the ability to get other stars and aren't old enough in the other positions to be able to play. Their ages are just off. And so you're trying to pluck. You just got to get 2. You already have 1. Well, you don't have to get 2. You have to get 1 more. You already have an aging. Like Shai Gilgeous will be an all-star. He is going to be an all-star.
And then maybe you look at, because it won't be Dame, how old is CJ? Is he in his 30s?
McCollum?
Yeah.
I think maybe 30.
Because Dame's already talked about, he's already made his comments through Chris Haynes, right? So does Portland finally say, okay, maybe we move CJ, right? And then, okay, CJ's 29, thanks Bilal. Yeah. 29 with SGA, with Cat, like, oh, no, we got something. We got something here now. Yeah. Who knows, right? And you would give them picks and all that. But
that's the point. The point is everyone thinks OKC is going to be a reclamation project for a few years now. And I'm just wondering, well, if I was Shai's agent, well, that doesn't excite me.
No, not at all.
Like they are terrible.
Yes. And
there's going to have to be so, and that's fine. They're allowed to be terrible. You would like their future. I like their future, but not if I'm Shai. Right? He's a shooting guard at 22 years of age now. He's got another year, and then he's going to be a free agent, restricted free agent. I just feel like you've got to share with him, hey, we're gonna build. We're not just going to keep drafting and developing.
Right.
You can't even do it with all their guys. Like you just can't do it with all their guys. So I think it's something to keep an eye on. Sam Presti, who I've known since he was in college, he ain't no dummy.
Greg just asked, is SGA a good enough defender to counter Cat and CJ? So here's my thing about that. Cat has the profile to be a good defender. He is.
His metrics are good.
Right. He is showing the ability he does not want to, but he has the the profile to be a good one. And if you got Lou Dort and SJ is very tall and long back there, that would be enough defense to make up for CJ's inefficiencies on that side. And for CJ is small, but he's not an unwilling defender, right? Like he's willing to do and be in the right spot. So I think that's also important to note there.
Yeah, I think that I think Cat's defense has gotten better. I've looked at his metrics, not recently, but maybe 2 weeks ago, and I was surprised. Like, yeah, he's still doing pretty good. I also think defenses starts with coaching and roster strategy system. We've seen that over and over again, right? The same. No one thought the Knicks would do what they're doing this year because they never did it before. And what happened, right? They didn't suddenly become good defenders because they got longer and stronger. They got coached up. We see it all the time. Yeah. So on the subject of we're talking Minnesota, have you seen what Anthony Edwards has been doing?
Yeah, he's been looking great. That 3-point shots coming around.
8 of 9 in one game. And if you look at his chart on ducks and threes, it's trending up nicely.
He's also already, as a rookie, the best quote in the NBA.
Yeah, everyone. I don't typically read player quotes too much. Everyone always says that. I don't know what it is. What is it?
He's always making jokes and being hilarious about something. He said the other day, I'm going to Spain with Ricky Rubio and Hernan Gomez over the summer. I'm going to come back speaking fluent so that when they're talking around me, I know exactly what they're saying. Like, I mean, he's hilarious, man. Like everything's just like, he is a breath of fresh air, and he's got a moxie to him where, going up against these top guys, he gives them all the respect, but he's not afraid of them, right? Like, and they may like embarrass me or whatever, but I'm going to keep coming back, keep working. Like, no, because I want to be good too. I think they got a good one there. My only question is, I don't really trust Minnesota as an organization, so I don't know what's going to happen in the future there. But with new ownership coming in, maybe everything changes eventually.
Right. Well, yeah, with A-Rod. He averaged 22 a game in March, 24 in April. I think he's a hands-down rookie of the year myself. He's just played almost every game. He's put a bunch of big games up. He's still not a good defensive player. He's not a very efficient offensive player. He went 8 of 9 from three the other night. He's not a good three-point shooter, but he ain't afraid. Now, he does not drive very much either. He needs to. He can change that about him. Although I like that he's shooting the ball. Don't get me wrong. I think he needs to learn to shoot. And so how do you do it? You keep shooting. You get reference points from it. But yeah, he's interesting. It's nice to see him trending up. These guys are getting a lot of free time to work on the game and recover because of the season. The rookies are struggling. Yep. Halliburton's now out for the season, right?
Yep.
And that's the thing. What do you want to get to?
Let's talk about this, Rudy Gobert. I read the Hollinger piece, and actually I'm going to do, not next week, we're going to do something on Denver and Michael Porter Jr. for next week's video. But I think I want to talk about the Utah Jazz in the video after that. But how good, coach, is Rudy Gobert? We know what he does defensively. That's clear. He's probably going to be 3-time now DPOY this year. But offensively, now, here's where I think the casual fan and even like people who consider themselves good basketball fans get confused about Rudy. He doesn't do the things that Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic do on offense.
For sure.
Right? So to your eye, you're like, well, he's not that good because you can't just give him the ball and they can go, because that's not his game. But Hollinger talked about his catch radius, what he does in terms of screen assists, and how because of the catch radius and the fear of the lob, how he causes the perimeter defenders to drop down, which gives Utah open threes. Talk a little bit deeper about how he impacts Utah offensively.
Yeah. Well, first I want to say Henry called me yesterday and said, hey, Jarod's going to do an MPJ thing that he's really high on. Do you agree? And I said, oh, yeah. I have been critical of him as a decision maker. I said, I thought he was trending towards a Zach LaVine clone in terms of decision-making, different position, not as much of a primary ball handler, but defensively lost, not anymore. He is a much improved player on both sides of the court. And so I'm looking forward to seeing him. And you're welcome to call me for whatever you want. He's really, I mean, you should be excited. Denver's got to be thrilled. He's really killing it, especially with Murray being out.
He is, I'm going to tease that he may be already emerging as Denver's second best player right now.
Oh, I agree. Yeah. In fact, they play the Jazz tonight. I'll be watching the game. It's going to be great. So you said everything you should have said about Gobert. In my opinion, he's the number 2 center. I put Embiid number 3 because he's played so many more games. And Embiid's phenomenal, but Rudy maybe has missed a game or 2 all season. He's way different. He's not a better player than Embiid if you look at skills and size and all that, strength. But for what he does for Utah, the thing I like most about him is he goes after everything. Like Rudy doesn't take plays off on the offensive glass. It's quite extraordinary and rare to see. And I don't want him to foul. I always want the best players to stay in games, but he makes plays on everything. And the average fan will think, well, his hands aren't very good because he doesn't always catch the ball. It's incredible he even got his hands on the ball. Like that kept the ball alive. That's a good thing. Yeah, his pick and roll game, of course, he always leads the league in screen assists, which is a little bit overrated, but still, someone's got to set the screens. He's doing it. And defensively, he's unbelievable. He spoils them because when he's not in the game, they might play a guy a certain way that really works when Rudy's in the game. But when Derek Favors is in, it's just not the same thing. Derek Favors is fine. He ain't Rudy Gobert. Rudy to me is, I'm very good at projecting players. I'm not perfect. It's very hard to do. I still have questions about LaMelo Ball's competitiveness. There's no doubt his talent is off the charts. It's hard to predict these kinds of things. When he was a rookie, I'm not even sure he wasn't even in Summer League. I wrote and tweeted that, like, this guy's going to beat Team USA one day. I really did that because you could see this enormously, I think he's got a 7'6" wingspan.
He's huge.
Right? And now he does things, Jarod, like pick and roll. He gets that, we call it the short roll. If they kind of blitz Conley or Mitchell or Joe Ingles, which you kind of have to do with Joe because he's shooting 50% from 3. So they'll hit Gobert on the early pocket pass. It's a short little bounce pass, and Gobert gets it at 14 feet from the rim. We used to never want to throw it to big men. Amari Stoudemire weaved through the crowd like he was a damn snake. But no one else could do it but Amari. Now Rudy Gobert at 7 foot whatever, is able to tiptoe through these bodies and dunk or kick out for 3 or sometimes turn his body this way and throw it backward for the above the break 3. Like, he's a monster on both sides. And Conley's been incredible. Donovan Mitchell's been incredible. Of course, they're still winning decently with Amy out. Rudy is the straw that stirs the whole drink. They would have to change the way they play without Rudy Gobert for sure.
And that's the point I wanted to touch on you with. Come playoff time, and you know this because that's how we watch basketball. And again, I always credit you for teaching me, try to watch the game and don't watch the ball. Right? Watch everything else. It's very hard to do because your eyes always want to see what the ball is doing. Yeah. Everyone's going to give, and rightfully so, Donovan a lot of credit because of what we value in the playoffs, right? Which is the ability to create and make your own shot.
Buckets,
right? But if they don't have Rudy Gobert, what are they?
They're just good. Just a good team. If you have a replacement level center in the game, they're just a good team. Rudy, you can take Donovan out and they're still very good. Without Rudy, they're just good. He's really, it's a great lesson for everyone who loves an NBA team that has a big man that isn't developed yet. These are long, tall dudes. There's so much can go wrong with their bodies. On a very fast, explosive game, it takes a while. Rudy's hands are not Zach Randolph's hands, but neither is anyone else that's ever played the game. They're good enough now, and they're good. I think he's also, like, almost no one ever leads the league in rebounds and block shots, because when you go in to block a shot, you're up there, you're taking yourself out of rebound position. I think he's going to do it.
Crazy.
Like that is, I think what you said is right. Ben Simmons is an incredible defensive player. I read about it this week. The defensive player of the year is hands down Rudy Gobert. That is his 3rd in 4 years. So Dwight Howard won 3 in a row, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So Rudy's right there with him. He's a Hall of Famer. But don't you think Dwight's definitely a Hall of Famer?
Oh, 100%. No
100%. I agree with you. No, so is this guy.
Yeah.
So is this guy. And he was a late first-round pick, the Stifle Tower, first ballot. Caleb's right. Yeah. I love
last thing before we go, because Legal's going to come on, championship bus, I think, in the front seat now Philly, Milwaukee, Clippers, Phoenix, I think, and Utah.
Yeah.
But the Mitchell thing's got me. But those 5 teams, I think, have now moved themselves to the front of the bus.
I completely agree. When you say LA team, stop saying LA teams. It's just
Clippers.
the LA team.
Yeah, Clippers.
There's just one. I agree.
All right, everybody, have an awesome weekend. Thank you, Coach. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Mondays with Tom Aberstro. Take care.